Great to be here with all of you. And many of you, it's very nice to hear that some of you have already heard of Onward. Many of you might have seen some of the news coverage recently of us and our outstanding research partners in Switzerland. For those of you who haven't, I wanted to start by showing you a brief summary of some of that news coverage from around the world. Hopefully it'll play. One more? Okay.
Tonight, there's news of an incredible scientific breakthrough that gave a paralyzed man the ability to walk naturally again using his thoughts.
This breakthrough sounds like science fiction, but it's real.
Impressive is only putting it mildly. That's right. Researchers in Switzerland developed technology that linked his brain and his spinal cord.
So this breakthrough holds special significance for you.
It does, Michael. My dad was Christopher Reeve, and he suffered a spinal cord injury in 1995. I wish he were here today to see how far the research has come.
It works like this. When Oscar thinks about taking a step, a brain implant picks up the signals and sends them to a computer strapped to his back.
A computer analyzes them to predict how he wants to move, and then messages electrodes implanted in his spinal cord that allow him to make those movements.
Researchers are saying this is the first successful procedure of its kind, AI being used as a thought decoder.
We re-establish this communication with a digital bridge that transforms the thought into action.
He was so fast that the very first day we asked him to stand up and to do a few steps, and it worked.
Within 5 to 10 minutes, I could control my hips.
We were all in tears.
And that gives me a lot of freedom, which I didn't have with previous therapy.
His small steps, a potentially giant leap for patients with spinal cord injury.
A digital repair of the spinal cord. It is remarkable. Congratulations to you both. I think you're going to really change so many lives.
To that is that Onward plans to further study and potentially commercialize a BCI-enabled therapy to restore movement, perhaps by the end of the decade. But with people with spinal cord injury, may not have to wait that long to access life-changing and historic therapies. Over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Onward and our plans to develop and commercialize breakthrough therapies, some within months, that could really make a huge difference in the lives of people with SCI. So to start off with, let's take a look at a snapshot of the company. Actually, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am the VP of Communications. My name is Aditi Roy, and let me see if the bullets, okay, there we go. I come from a long career in the news world. Actually, this was a pivot for me. I started at Onward just a few months ago, but I was a television news reporter and correspondent at CNBC and ABC and NBC News. I was also a local reporter and anchor in Philadelphia. When I was in Philly, I went back to business school to get my MBA at Wharton, and I still have a great connection at Wharton because I am a lecturer in communications there, talking about how to make business presentations like the one that you're seeing. So this is a great case study for me. Now let's talk a little bit about Onward. You know, when I first was approached about this job, it was a story that I know kind of left me stunned, and it's a story that I wanted to bring the world. A little bit about our company. We were founded in 2015. We have raised $170 million since our inception with a successful IPO in October of 2021 on the Euronext. We have two technology platforms. They are both neuromodulation platforms. They both stimulate the spinal cord to restore movement and autonomic function after spinal cord injury. We have 9 breakthrough device designations from the FDA, underscoring the innovative nature of our work, and also more than 340 pending or issued patents. We continue to progress in our journeys to validate our therapies clinically as well. We have 1 pivotal trial complete with positive top-line results announced last year, and we're going to be telling you more about that with my co-presenter when he takes the stage. And we also announced positive interim outcomes for our first therapy leveraging our implantable platform. Commercialization, we are launching into a large TAM. Expect first commercial sale in 2024 with our external stimulator, launching into a favorable reimbursement climate in the US for our principal platform, the ARC-IM platform. That's our internal device. We have a strategic partnership with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation as well. So a little bit about our vision, and this is really our North Star. Empowered by movement, people with spinal cord injury will enjoy life in every way that matters to them. That is really our guiding force. We are a med tech company that develops innovative therapies and platforms, including an implantable one, to help people with spinal cord injuries move again and also restore function and live more independently. Now, we have had great speakers today, so I don't want to belabor the problem because we've heard so much about it. We know how devastating spinal cord injury is and that there is no cure for it. We've heard about the prevalence, the average lifetime cost, $5 million for a tetraplegic. We want to be able to do something for it. So a little bit about our solution. Our therapies offer targeted, precise stimulation of the spinal cord to restore that movement, function, and independence. Now, our therapies are delivered through two technology platforms that you see up there. These two platforms give us the flexibility and the opportunity to target multiple indications. The one on your left there is the ARC-EX, that is our external stimulator and the one that's closest to commercialization. And what you see up there is a stimulator that delivers our therapy through the skin. It is non-invasive. And the ARC-IM is the one that you see on the right. That's our implantable platform. We have our own implantable pulse generator and also our own family of leads. With the ARC-EX, the external device, the first indication that we're working on is to restore hand and arm function. So that stimulator is attached by leads to electrodes that sit on the cervical spinal cord right behind on the neck here for the purpose of restoring arm and hand function. Again, that therapy is delivered transcutaneously or through the skin non-invasively. Our proprietary combination of carrier and therapeutic waveforms is designed to be strong enough to reach and stimulate the right place on the spinal cord without causing pain and discomfort. And in just a few minutes, Dr. James Guest will be talking you through those results of the pivotal study that we conducted. But in the meantime, we'll move on to our implantable platform. So taking a closer look at this system, in this case, you can see the IPG there, right over there. It is smaller than the credit card, and the leads there are placed near the site of the injury to deliver our therapy in the most targeted way possible. And the IPG sits in the abdomen there. Now, they're programmed and recharged wirelessly through the hub there, the ARC-IM hub, and the clinician uses a tablet to program the device. The patient or the person can use voice commands to activate it and do some minimal programming through a smartwatch or a smartphone as well. The first indication that we're pursuing using this implantable device is normalizing or improving blood pressure. The young woman whom you see up there on the screen, her name is Julie. She lives near Brussels. I've had an opportunity to meet her. She's lovely. And for her, she has had our ARC therapy via an implantable spine stimulator, and it made a real difference. She talks about how after she had a devastating car accident that left her paralyzed, she really grappled with low blood pressure to the point where to do that transfer in the morning from the bed to her chair, it would take her 30 to 40 minutes every day. She dropped out of school. She said the day-to-day was just really, really hard. After receiving the therapy through the implantable spine stimulator, she says she noticed a discernible difference. Her energy levels are higher. She is back in school, and she was just great and energetic and really positive when I spoke to her. She is not alone. As you know, blood pressure is a challenge that plagues so many in the SCI community, about 75% or so. And this is an indication that does not require rehab. So you turn on the device and the blood pressure is regulated. The mechanism of action is clearly understood, and this was published in Nature in January of 2021. We announced positive interim outcomes in December from the first 10 people who received this therapy. And staying on that implantable platform, We're also pursuing the ability of standing and walking again with this population. So far, it's been published in Nature again that 9 participants have been able to stand and walk again with the benefit of ARC therapy, and that includes people with complete spinal injuries. Another interesting aspect of our technology is the use of a brain-computer interface. You saw that signaled in that opening video there. A lot of people are excited and talk a lot about BCIs. It's been in the news lately a lot as well. Our work with BCI involves pairing it with our ARC therapy to restore mobility and function. And the system, as you saw in some of those videos, it works with a brain implant capturing the volition, the intention to move, sending that signal wirelessly to a spine stimulator that's implanted, which then stimulates the spinal cord to activate that movement. Our device is already architected for that. It's BCI ready, we like to say. And we're well positioned to lead in this category. We have been awarded European Innovation Council grants to study BCI in 4 patients to be implanted, 2 for restoring hand and arm function, and 2 for restoring mobility. The first of those procedures is scheduled to happen in August. We are also part of a consortium that won first prize in the 2022 BCI Awards. We beat out teams from many reputable schools like Caltech and UCLA. And speaking of BCI, revisiting that opening video, many of you saw that story about Hert-Jan. He was the man, the Dutch man, who had brain and spine stimulators implanted last year and using those leveraged ARC therapy in order to gain augmented control over his paralyzed legs. His journey was chronicled in Nature and covered wildly globally. This is just a taste of some of the outlets which covered this really groundbreaking technology. So it was very exciting to just get the message out there and provide so much hope. Turning now a little bit to business matters. So this is our current pipeline. And the lines that you see in red there, that's in our current business pipeline. I mentioned that the 2 platforms really give us an opportunity to present multiple indications. So the top one there, the upper limb mobility for the ARC-EX, as I mentioned, pivotal trial is complete. You'll hear more about that in just a second. For the ARC-IM, for the blood pressure indication, we're in the clinical feasibility stage and on the verge of starting a pivotal trial. And there are also multiple indications for which there is clinical proof of concept. So these are not pie-in-the-sky indications. They've already been demonstrated preclinically and clinically, and we are keen to move forward on these. The TAM for those first 3 indications that you saw, that exceeds $20 billion. And if you add what we call near future indications, those that have already had a clinical proof of concept, we're north of $100 billion. We also have a considerable IP portfolio, more than 340 patents worldwide. Roughly half of them we developed ourselves. The other half we have exclusive licenses with some of the top neuroscience institutions in the world. You see them listed up there. And all of this is a big first mover advantage for us, as is our strategic partnerships. That includes the Reeve Foundation, Spinal Injuries Association, as well as Wings for Life. I'm going to squint here and read some of these, the quotes that you see. I know that it's in small lettering. From the Reeve Foundation, Marco Baptista, you heard from him earlier today, says, functional recovery once deemed impossible may soon be in reach. The head of the Spinal Injuries Association says, I have been following this closely over 20 years. Nothing like this has ever been brought into the clinical setting. And Wings for Life, the CEO, saying, this is our most visible success. So there's a lot of anticipation and excitement in the field, and that really also gives us some marketing efficiencies, allowing us to generate awareness for our therapies by reaching people with SCI directly. So we really appreciate and are grateful for these incredible partnerships. As far as funding, starting from 2016, our investors have included some of Europe's leading life science venture capital firms like EQT Life Sciences. In 2019, we added the Reeve Foundation. In 2021, we added the Onassis Foundation, and later in October of 2021, we had a successful IPO believed to be the largest pre-revenue medtech IPO in European history. So we have an excellent book of investors from the US and around the world. We also have an outstanding leadership team for a company at our stage. Many of you know Dave Marver, our CEO. He's a veteran CEO. He spent 15 years with Medtronic in a variety of VP roles and also served as CEO of listed companies on the NASDAQ and the Euronext. Lara, our CFO, she led the IPO for MorphoSys. She's also a Stanford-educated electrical engineer. John, our CTO, led neuromodulation R&D at Abbott and LivaNova. Erica Ross Ellison, she recently joined us from Abbott, where she led their global neuromodulation clinical activities. She was also on the faculty in the Department of Neurosurgery at Mayo Clinic. Our CSO, Gregoire Croutine, you saw him in the video. Many of you know him. He's one of the world's leading authorities in this space and the one responsible for all the Nature papers that I referenced earlier. And Sarah Moore also recently came here from Nevro. She has a long history with Johnson & Johnson. She's launched more than 20 medical technologies during her time. So key takeaways: large TAM, very straightforward commercialization path, clinical trial results, one pivotal trial already complete with positive top-line results, already positive interim outcomes for the first indication of our implantable platform. Several additional indications are planned. We are an innovative company with 9 FDA breakthrough device designation awards and more than 340 pending or issued patents. Very experienced global management team who can scale the company, and a successful IPO under our belts with over $170 million in funding. So that's a quick look at our company and the business plan. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. James Guest from the University of Miami and the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis.
Okay, so I have the pleasure today to talk about the results of the UPLIFT study, which was completed last summer. And so I'm from the University of Miami, where I'm a professor of neurological surgery. And I just wanted to take a minute to just walk through, I'm going to see if I can move this, and just tell you a little bit about how this transcutaneous spinal cord stimulation works. So basically, the input of transcutaneous stimulation is really very straightforward. The complexity is really what's happening in the nervous system. So to do this, you apply cathode electrodes over the area of the spinal cord you'd like to stimulate, and then you deliver these pulses. This is the standard frequency of 30 hertz, and that is laid in with a very high frequency, which is called a carrier frequency. Oh, that's better. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the carrier frequency, it reduces the impedance of the skin and allows more current to get in and can help minimize pain. So this little cartoon is just a very simple overview of how we think this works. So the current enters the tissue, it goes to the dura, through into the CSF, and then the easiest structure to activate happen to be these dorsal roots, and of those, the proprioceptor axons are the easiest of all to activate, and they come into the spinal cord and they terminate on interneurons. And we think it's really this interneuron neuromodulation that leads to the effects. What's missing for the diagram is the voluntary desire to move that's coming in. So what's happening is the person wants to do something and they're trying, and the stimulation sort of neuromodulates to make that more effective. And so the study had a lot of sites. There were 14 SCI centers. We were one of those. And so it was a really interesting design. So there was, of course, screening, and then there was a full set of baseline assessments, and then there was 2 months of active task practice, and it was pretty intensive. People could do between 3 and 5 sessions a week of an hour. So some people came essentially every day. And then at the end of each month, there's a full set of assessments. So the idea was that people coming from not being in intensive rehabilitation would likely show some improvements just due to rehabilitation. The idea was that hopefully or possibly those would plateau, and then when you add in the neuromodulation, this is a form of control. In a way, if you see people have a plateau and then you are able to boost them beyond that plateau with the neuromodulation. So it was designed and registered as a pivotal study with the intention to enroll 65 people. And this is the consort diagram for the study. Remind you again, cervical cathodes, the anodes are usually on the anterior iliac spines. And this is the box and block test, which I was introduced to during the study. Quite a difficult test that was the last thing that each subject saw at the end of each session, and it involves a lot of different tasks in order to reach for the marble, pick it up, and move it across. So I kind of already walked you through this just per the consort diagram. 65 people were enrolled. In the end, the intent to treat population was 60. There were some withdrawals during the study. And of course, the other primary aim here was to demonstrate safety. So the primary endpoint is an interesting one. It's a composite endpoint that includes response in one domain of testing in strength and one domain of testing in function. So the idea was that in order to qualify as a responder, you had to have a statistically significant result in one of each category of tests. And so it turned out that 72% of the people who completed the study were defined as responders. That meant 43 of 60 people were defined as responders, and 17 were not defined as responders. It doesn't mean that nothing happened, but it means that they didn't meet that primary endpoint. And then this has some additional endpoints that were included in the study, like the EQ. And what's being shown here, the gray bar is the end of so-called run-in, or 2 months of intensive task practice, and then the red bars are at 4 months, so with the additional 2 months of neuromodulation. And so this is really a very interesting figure. So remember that the idea was that there would be this rehabilitation period for 2 months, and that then there would be a plateau of recovery, and then you would add neuromodulation. And so this was sort of what was envisioned at the beginning, but in fact, some people just kept getting better. And what's really interesting about this figure is that there's no tail end plateau except for pinch force. So what it probably means is there was more potential for recovery than was observed in this time period, which is a very gratifying thought that there may be greater efficacy in some people with longer exposures. There were impacts on quality of life, including sleep, pain. Spasticity is a very interesting one. So some of us played around with different frequencies with the neuromodulation, and we were able to modulate spasticity, which was very helpful, and independence. And there's other things going on with the transcutaneous stimulation, like truncal effects and things that are not captured in these slides. I actually think that was the last slide that I have, so thank you very much.